Welcome back to the second of our sessions for day 16. I've lost track of how many days I've been doing this. So day 16 today. Welcome. We are joined by the wonderful Louise Thomson. Louise is all about helping people feel, well, when people feel there's conflict in the team, when confusion, delays, decisions, when people lack confidence, if tough conversations are being avoided and strategy isn't being achieved, Louise leans in. She's curious about people's practice of leadership, whether it's their personal leadership, social leadership, or strategic leadership. Louise proactively explores the situation and context to understand the intent, use of behavioural preferences, impact of conversational styles, and the connection people make in their relationships. Her experience gleaned from organisational transformation, credit risk management, and her own consultancy practice, where she facilitated major and global project implementation. Louise is in a position to mentor leadership practices, coach people to determine their own actions, and design and deliver performance solutions. And today, Louise, we're going to talk about why people trust you. Well, not trust you, but trust me, trust each other. So I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, Julia. And it is a bit about that, isn't it? It's trusting yourself, it's trusting others, it's having people trust you. So I do see it quite holistically. So we are here to talk about possibly these 4 words, why people trust you. So I'm sure the fact that that's how it's been introduced and you would have seen it advertised, that that's been maybe going on in your mind, why people trust you and how might you define that. So I will be asking you to let me know what it is, and very briefly, so I can keep an eye on the chat, and Julie's going to keep on that. But you know what? I'm actually really interested in this. Why people don't trust you. So we've got a few people coming on board. So if you could think about one response, one word, a very short phrase, why people don't trust you, and think of you personally. So what I want to tell you about is only a few weeks ago, I had a new client, say that to me. We were on the phone. He had just agreed to take on my services, and I designed a whole day, a strategy day for him. And when I was chatting with him on the telephone, exactly that, he didn't know me. There was some unknown about to happen if I come on board, and it was going to be face-to-face. First time in 360 days. So when he said that on the phone, I was taken aback, but this is what I deal with, but to really receive that, and we talked through it. And what it was, he was okay for me to deal with the soft stuff in the morning, which for him was, values and vision and behaviours. In the afternoon, he was going to be dealing with the hard stuff, the actual strategy, what they wanted to achieve. He didn't know me, and he plucked me, I suppose, off the internet and interviewed 7 people and then went for me. So there must have been some level of trust. So, it's a real challenge for people who, if they haven't met you, which is giving you a bit of a clue of what I'm going to be talking about. So, yeah, Josie, so why are you so excited when you're so afraid? It is. The unknown of not meeting someone, you can be afraid on so many different levels. So I want you to think about then, okay, what does it feel like when people trust you? What does it feel like? If you can, type in an emotion. So when people do trust you, they may not tell you, but you may sense it. So do you feel energized? I've got a little deck of cards here. Yeah, Julia, peace. Whew, you know, the fact that I've got people on board. Yeah, warmth, Josie. You know, I love the whole compassion. I know there's trust. I feel as if I can really help people. Yeah, Nosh, and hi, Nosh. Relief. Phew. You know, I might have, you know, there could be quite a challenge there, but as soon as you feel and sense and they tell you possibly that they trust you, you can be streaks ahead. So Eileen, grateful I have displayed the behaviours for others, yeah, to trust me. And that's critical of those behaviours. So, let's just think about behaviours. When I think of trust, I'm looking at on 3 levels. Now, I've gone for using good old, you know, markers and on paper. So here's my first little Venn diagram. So I want you to think about trust on those 3 levels: self, social, and being strategic. So on self, which is where I'll go first, but self is all about you. It's about being accountable. It's been above the line. If you choose, are you going to be accountable or are you going to blame? So there's blamelessness when it's focused in on you. And social is all about the relationships that you have with people. That if you trust yourself, you're more likely then to trust other people. People who doubt themselves often struggle in their relationships. And then being strategic is about thinking about how you add value to the business. It's very challenging to be trusted and to have trust in your business if you don't have trust in yourself. So 3 levels, 3 layers to keep thinking about when you work on trust alone. So if I go back to my client, when I worked with the team, I got through my 4 hours of the soft stuff, and he came up to me and he said, yeah, I'm going to retract those words, Louise. I do trust you, and I wish I had engaged you for the whole day. And I knew that. I knew that within, say, the first 30 minutes that I got him on board. And there's quite a few reasons for that. And I wish we could spend 24 hours talking about this. But we all know it, don't we? We all know it when we've got people and they are trusting us. I like to think about what's the first thing you do when you meet people. What do you actually do to get their trust? And do you keep doing it? Are you consistent? Because that's where we look at relationships and we measure them. Is there consistency? Is there predictability? Or is there inconsistency? And I don't want to get politically here, but if you're in Australia, if you're beaming in, like, what the hell is going on in our country at the moment? It's so unpredictable, and we don't do well as humans, social beings. We've no doubt all heard about the reptilian brain and the amygdala, and we're all set off at the moment because we don't know what's happening every day. It's the same as in 2020 with COVID. So what we want is to excite our brains and use the more modern brain and entertain it so that we can play around and be more honest, more compassionate, to be ourselves. And that's where I found myself working with that client, very quickly engaging them, being very honest about how nervous I was to be working with a group of people after 360 days. And they all felt the same. They hadn't seen each other for that amount of time. I didn't make out that I knew more than them. And I quelled their amygdala and I told them what we were about to do for the day. So I want to take you through some observations over, dare I say, 30 years of what I believe at the self level. And if I I show you this to think about building your reputation of trust, then relationships and resilience. I've got a bit of a model that I'll quickly talk you through, and I'll be interested to hear from you what resonates for you most in a trust building relationship. Now, some of you may have seen this model because I was working it late last year online, and I know I can see a few names that follow me on LinkedIn. And if you're not connected with me, please connect. So there are 12 areas that I explored and keep testing out with clients. And yeah, it's okay, Arlene, it's difficult to really relate to have folks a feeling coming back to face. I know, my Lord, it's so challenging. And, you know, I suppose this model for me helps me get on board and be ready for any situation so that I can build trust really quickly. And the first one is energy. I don't know, tell me in the chat, do you have more energy being online, like right now, or face-to-face? So just give me one of those responses. Is it face-to-face, good old F2F? Yeah, or, oh, thanks. No, I should share my LinkedIn profile there. So what do you, yeah, face-to-face, Heidi. What about online? Who's getting this energy, this buzz out of being dressed up here and tracky decks down below? Are you energized with that? I'm going to read what Julia, if you've ever seen a relative after a long time, Arlene, it kind of feels like that. Familiar but awkward, I know. Yeah, oh nice, yeah, I like both. Okay, I'm a bit like you. I've said for months now, oh, I'm only doing online, but being face-to-face, to read the cue, to read the energy was amazing. And yeah, so isn't it great being on home? But I've got my cat outside locked up because I know that he'll crawl across my keyboard. He does it every time when I'm presenting. So yeah, it's situational context on what might work for you. So let me work through here. So energy. We all need to do an audit of our energy. So if you're about to work with people one-on-one or with groups of people, where's your energy at? Has it been sucked out of you? Or are you able to give energy depending on the level of energy that you have? So you can do an energy audit. It's quite a few questions involved, but it's something you can ask yourself on a regular basis, especially when you're moving into relationship mode. I'd say energy is contagious. You know, for me, that's number one. If I can get energy going straight away, you've got the trust starting to build. But engage is that next stage. Now, engage is all about your willingness to bring people into your life. It's very difficult to have trust where you're cautious and potentially inconsistent in your relationship. I would say if we had a drone flying over you, and I call it the leadership drone, what would they see you doing when you're engaging with other people? Do you look as if you're interested in them? Is your to them? Then the next piece is to excite. If I go back to the amygdala, which is in the older part of the brain, and it serves its purpose, but we literally need to tell it on a regular basis, hey, I'm okay. I'm on my own and I'm pretty confident and I want to be consistent. So just let me be comfortable to use my smart brain and let me give trust to people, opposed to you earning my trust. And I believe that's the big distinction in trust is that I'd say the older way was that you have to earn it. And what we really want to do now is to give it. So think about that. And maybe just then tell me in the chat room, are you more likely to give trust, or do we need to earn your trust? So just, you could type either earn or give. let's just see what you think. And yes, Sue, the energy audit is very interesting. Give, thank you, Arlene. Give, Sue. Yeah, great. Excellent. Yeah, and then I suppose, what does that look like? Yeah, earn is old school, but I'm telling you, I had that situation from a very young gentleman saying to me, I don't trust you. So I had to earn his trust very quickly in a matter of a week. So think about that when you're next in a situation with someone else and trust is required, how easily do you give trust? And maybe I'd say that there's always a smidgen there that has to be earned. But that comes up to these other points. So expectations, what expectations do we have of our relationship? That's where this earn and give might come into play. We tend to, we can set boundaries and expectations for ourselves, and sometimes that excludes people, opposed to letting people in, allowing you to lean in. Now, enable for me is critical in trust, because I find that there's a fine line between to enable and to disable. So to enable trust and to disable trust. So again, interested to hear from you. What might enable trust for you and what might disable trust? See how brief you can be in your response. Aline, it's too easy to dismiss folks. Oh, okay, I've lost that. Lisa, not doing what you say you are going to do. That's awesome, Lisa. And Julie, could you read out that Arlene's point? I'm just working from one screen.
Arlene said it's too easy to dismiss folks for not trusting when they are quieter or more reflective, especially if you're more energetic, if you're a more energetic person.
That's a great point, isn't it? We live in a extrovert's world, and the last 12 months has been a gorgeous introvert's world where space and time, there's been a little bit more of it that I've found. So yes, context has a lot to be said for in these situations. Sue, enable, attitude, positive attitude, disable. Yeah, respect. That's a big thing, isn't it? That we don't respect each other. And that gets back to Eileen's, respecting our differences. Thank you. Josie, disable when people don't keep their promises. I know, that's a tough one, isn't it? So many things go against trust. And I think of it sometimes as a, some Lego building blocks, how we build our trust, we build our skill of trust, and we're doing really well. And how easily one situation, some inconsistency, something unpredictable has occurred, and you're back down to having to build that relationship up again. So yeah, I keep enabling on my radar as much as I can to keep the relationships really in a trust bubble. Okay, I'm going to quickly go through some of these others. So empower, again, fine line, empower, power, disempower. What are you doing with yourself to think about how do I empower other people? How likely am I to delegate to enable people to learn rather than me having to be right all the time or do it the best way? So this is a bit of an audit in yourself, thinking about how easy do I make it to be of trust to others. Enlisting is that asking for other people to help you. It's a really big measure of trust is when you say, look, I actually need a hand. Nosh was really generous earlier today, offering to help me in case I was using PowerPoint. And that's fabulous. And to actually then, for me to have maybe got in early if I was and said, look, can you help me out? We're human, it's being authentic, it's showing that that you care for other people, that they can be part of your success. So shared success is a great thing to power the prefrontal cortex. So Eileen, asking for help is such a big step to show vulnerability. Exactly. Yeah, show that you're human. That's a great point. And you know, it is a busy, complex world. The people are complex. And if we could just make it a little bit more simple to show who we really are. Now, I think we're all drug dealers, and we need to be drug dealers if we're into trust. Again, I'm getting back to what we know about neuroscience, all these neurons, all these great chemicals going in and out of our body, depending on how we have a conversation with someone. We can produce in one statement, one sentence, high trust, or we could kill a conversation with distrust. And the distrust enabler is all about I'll do that, I'm best for that. Talking about yourself opposed to the whole diminishing of the cortisol and lifting, let's say, the endorphins, serotonin, all the happiness drugs in our body is all about we. What can we do together? And how can you help me do that? Let's achieve this together. So yeah, thanks, Nosh. I'm a big drug dealer. I want to get the right drugs going through your body that will help you fast track to trust. Experiment. So leadership is all about experiment, and I think we just have to come a little bit closer to home and again focus on self and how different are we this year than we are last year. What are we doing different? What could we be doing different? And again, it's that vulnerability. If you can experiment and share that you're experimenting, whether that you be in an organisation and you're in a leadership position or you're a sole trader, we need to be adding words to explain what you're experimenting, more likely to receive feedback. So experimenting enables this whole movement through this trust model. In game, we can borrow from Stephen Covey, keep the end in mind. Always your end game about improving your leadership. So Nosh, you're telling me way more open to experimentation. Yeah, than last year. So did last year open the gates for us? Did it give us permission that it's okay to experiment? It's okay that, cats run over keyboards and that we're in homes and you can see what's going on. Maybe. I'm feeling really confident about 2021 because people have, trusted themselves to really make working from home work, or the fact that they're missing their colleagues and they want to get back and they're doing whatever they can to get the office back together. So the final two, endure. Now, this is all about resilience. If you are going to be in this game of trust, it's not a snakes and ladder game, and it may feel that way. For me, it's about a game of chess where you've got to be quite strategic and always be mindful of how you're adding to that game of trust. Again, the building blocks, what is it that you're doing to build your trust in your relationships? And evolve. So my favourite thinking around evolving and keep moving around this model is either you're sitting in your sofa and you're flicking through Netflix, or you're having a really big stretch and getting off the sofa and thinking, rightio, what is it that I could be doing to improve trust in some of my relationships? Or are you in for a sprint? And have you sprinted into 2021? You're almost into the second quarter. What is it that you're doing? So back to Juliet, it's easy to say what's the worst that can happen when it kind of already has. Yeah, exactly. I mean, what is the next hurdle for us? What are you going to sprint over? Because I think we're pretty fit in this game to take on what's going to hit us exactly. Nosh, do you agree? So of those 12, where do you need to practice? What would you want to be experimenting with to lift your trust game? So energy, engage, excite, expect, enable, empower, enlist, endorphins, be the drug dealer, experiment, your end game, the Stephen Covey statement, endure and evolve. One word response. Let's hear from you. What is it that you would work on? Yes, Arlene, take you back to evolve. That's it. That kind of covers everything. Thank you. And if you're watching a recording of this, it'd be great for you to let me know what is it that you would concentrate on. Yeah. Not just going to be a drug dealer, Sue, yeah, energy, yeah, back to the beginning. And it's like a restart every day. You know, what gets you out of bed in the morning, thinking about where's my energy at? Yeah, evolve, and I love evolve. Evolve is really talking about really focusing on, you know, am I at the sofa stage, am I stretching, or am I really in for a sprint? Yeah, and energy is contagious, not it certainly is. And I know my kids are pretty energetic at what they do, and I know that I get lots of feedback that people say, no wonder, you know, you're always quite energetic, Louise. It rubs off just in our family. All right, so that's one model. Now, here we go. I'm okay to keep going, Julie. I just want to show you a couple of other models. So I keep getting questions from people about, well, how do you build, say, is it a skill trust? Is it something we can work on? So yes, exactly. And I would say using that model alone at a self level is a great exercise. But I also like to think at a social level what it is that you could be developing. And I'll just take you. So I've taken, it says relationships at the bottom. So I just want to focus on this spectrum. I've taken this piece of work from Judith E. Glasson. She poured 30 years of work of neuroscience and leadership into a super book called Conversational Intelligence. And every day I think about, when I'm working with people, where am I on the spectrum? And it's simply this, and I mentioned it before. Am I the distrust area or at the trust end of the spectrum? And trust is all about when you partner. It's when you talk about we and co-create things together, which can be really difficult if you are on your own. And it's about reaching out to, you know, every day if you have an opportunity to work on something together or solve a problem together. It's where we build the oxytocin and dopamine. So being that drug dealer, they're the better drugs that we want circulating for us to excite and get people involved with us. However, at the other end, you know, that's where the amygdala comes into play. And yes, as I said, we need it to be helping us. But it's very much, distrust comes into play when it continually hears the singular, that singular pronoun of I. And I think it's important, and I believe you should be doing this. And it shuts the excitement down. People want to be part. We're social. We want to be part of what's occurring. So think about that from a social point of view. You talk about it together. Focus on it to be social, but as a team, you can talk about it and use it as a almost like a ruler to measure where's the trust level in our relationships. Is there anyone feeling vulnerable enough to say where they are on that spectrum? right today in any relationship that you're involved with, if you're working with a client, working with a colleague, it's a tough one to respond to. Where do you think you are? You're right down the other end of trust. You can feel all those chemicals going off like popcorn. Yeah, so if you're feeling really valued by those around you, definitely the right drugs are going off. If you're feeling despondent, if you're feeling that you are being personally ridiculed or attacked, you tend to go down in this area as well. It's not about someone being almost, overly confident and sucking the energy out. It can be someone who personally doesn't feels as if they've been pushed into that area. That can occur. So Nosh, I have a client who will only just trust my organisation. Yeah, great. Well, repeat business. That tells you, doesn't it, that there's high trust there. And it's a lot to be, is Arlene. It's a lot to be about working and creating a safe. Oh, yes. Thank you, Arlene. In particular with the social side of trust is the whole psychological safety. And interestingly enough, the client story of mine was into safety. And so when I talked immediately in the morning about psychological safety, they had it. They realised the importance of very quickly trusting people around them, and particularly new people coming in. And Nosh, I have realised it's their experience and I can't really do much to increase their trust. Yes, good point. You can influence it to a degree, but yeah, that's why you're giving the trust even more so, and being consistent and being predictable in what you do. That's where we're aiming for. So let's focus on helping other people that you're socially connected with in relationships to work on achieving trust and feeling the trust rather than getting caught in the distrust area. And I highly recommend conversational intelligence if trust is a further interest to you. So I use a lot of her work in my workshops and one-on-one sessions with clients. Okay, the final. So on a strategic level, just to give you one exercise that, and I've alluded to it with psychological safety, is working with teams, which I regularly do. The first thing I recommend that we do as a team, especially if I'm new and I'm coming into work with them, is to create a trust charter. And then I leave it with the group to continually build their own trust charter. And it's something you would update as soon as a new person joins your team. You create together. It's not imposed. How we will behave together. I think, Arlene, you'd mentioned up at the beginning about behaviours. It's what behaviours will we demonstrate, and what behaviour do we have permission to call out on if people are working outside the charter. So yes, embedding behaviours, just as they should be doing in Canberra at the moment. I'm not sure where their trust charter is, but this for me is a game changer when I work with clients, and clients tell me when they know that someone new is coming into the group, they go back and review it, because as soon as a different person comes on board, they've got to be part of the design and the agreement of it. So for me, that's a great strategy approach for trust building. So I talked about the evolve, the trust model, the 12 components, and it will feel like there's lots of balls, in the air if you're trying to think of those 12, and thinking about trust and distrust, and in particular, being a drug dealer with what's going on in a person's body, head and body, with if there's trust or distrust, and the charter, 3 great ways to really get people trusting you. And that's why people trust you, because you're focusing in on it. So, Julia, Q&A. If anyone would like to ask a question or comment, that would be great.
Thanks so much, Louise, while people are typing in the chat. So great to see so many. I mean, it's such a big topic in terms of it influences everything, doesn't it? There's not a relationship on the planet, unless you're, you know, a narcissist maybe, that doesn't involve some aspect of trust. So,
oh, indeed, indeed. And yeah, as you mentioned, narcissism is on the rise. So we've just got to be far more aware and have it as a subject of discussion on a regular basis.
Yeah, like Arlene said, like the S's as a trust model. I've used a trust charter myself, particularly for, we haven't called it a trust charter, but same principle for projects that I've run in the past. Is also, well, if we're going to trust each other, what does that look like? So that's made a big difference.
Yeah, it does. Actually, that's another great book, The Trusted Advisor. It's like 20 years old, but some really great pearls of wisdom in relation to trust. Some great skill building around that. I'm just curious, Arlene, the S's as a trust model, do tell.
I'm meaning the S's that you brought of strategy and social and self, and that's what I'm meaning.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, simple, and just to remind yourself continuously that, am I working on those 3 levels?
The one of my favorite books, I read it a long time ago now, is The Speed of Trust. I think you mentioned Covey before. It's one of my all-time favorite books, actually, when I sit and read it, particularly about how to get traction.
Right. Is it by Covey, Julia?
It's by Covey's son, so Stephen J. So not Father Covey, son Covey.
Yeah, right. Oh, I'm not aware of that. Oh, must add that to my list.
Yes. So it talks about how, when we don't trust each other, we put roadblocks up. When we trust each other, those roadblocks are removed. So a lot of the momentum and action and execution when it comes to strategy, which is what I love to talk about.
Right. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I love roadblocks, just that metaphor to see that people can, discuss what are the roadblocks and what we're doing. So yeah, that's great.
Sue's asked, how do you shift a project sponsor from micromanaging because of a perceived lack of trust to letting go and getting out of the way so teams can do their work?
Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it? So that kind of gets back to the whole expectations and enlisting help and, allowing people, engaging people to be there to do the work rather than, being on top of them. It's a tough conversation to be had, would be one suggestion, and to provide feedback on the impact of being overly in control, or what would the difference be if they empower other people to get involved, or having a more open coaching type conversation to find out how their time management is given their involvement in it, and how might they free up some time. Well, there's a few approaches there, but generally it's a conversation that hasn't been had and feedback given.
One of the areas
I can just see her face if I tried to coach her. I've had a lot of difficult conversations with a lot of difficult sponsors over the years, Sue, and one of the things I always ask is why. Like I firmly believe that people don't distrust for the sake of distrusting. There's got to be something going on. Have they been burnt before? Is there a part of the program that they're not familiar with? Are they under pressure in other ways from a career point of view because someone's put trust? Like most sponsors are actually in a position of trust themselves, like they've been trusted to deliver the program. So it's sort of what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great approach. Yeah. And also back to the trust charter and getting if that person involved in building it, because you can have different roles within the trust charter. So who is working on which aspect of the project, and what does it look like to be trusted? So how can you trust us? You do trust us. And what's then the agreement between us if you break that part of the trust agreement? So that in itself, that if that's set up right, that can really be your tool to help further those conversations with that person. But it looks as if, there's a relationship there of maybe hierarchy. And you don't need to use a term coaching. It's just your type of questioning that you might use to elicit the responses you're seeking.
Nosh has asked if there's time for one more question, so I'll just answer him here and say yes.
Thanks, Julia. Louise, I had a question where a client has given us the trust charter. They are all about trusting and working together and all of that. But no matter what you do, they don't seem to trust us and will nag on every decision that we do take. Any tips?
Right. Yes. Okay. So similar situation before, in that it's like that micromanaging part of the trust agreement, and what's occurred before. And again, Nosh, it's right up the beginning how you establish the relationship and the roles and the boundaries, and what does success look with, who's involved. That's where I would generally take, if I find there's conflict in relationship, that's kind of, where I lean in. I so love getting involved in conflict. It's generally because we haven't understood each other enough and what's important for everyone. And when you find that information out, that goes into that trust charter or agreement. But it does highlight, doesn't it, that it occurs all the time, but we probably just haven't done enough of that discovery stage in who does what.
I've just been consistent with my way of approaching them, because that's not going to change.
Well, some people aren't, are they? Is it an 80-20 where 80%, you can really massage and work on, and 20, you've just got to suck it up sometimes. But I'm all for finding out what have we missed there, what's not working.
Thanks, Louise.
Thanks, Nosh.
I think it fluctuates so much, doesn't it? Hour to hour, day to day, week to week.
The way the wind's blowing as well.
Where the pressures are coming from in different relationships. Louise, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I could talk about trust all day. I love it. If people want to find out, Nosh has already posted the LinkedIn, but I know you're prolific there and have written many things elsewhere. So where should people find you if they want to know more?
www.louisethomson, no P, leave that out, .net. So my website, no problem.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Louise, and thanks for all the questions. Great to see so many people here. We're going to take a little break and we'll be